Welcome to the Celebrating Women podcast. Mandee Montana and Ashley Fisher dig into conversation about women, their issues, their thoughts, their lives, and celebrate their gifts, their talents, their courage. It's the Celebrating Women podcast, presented by Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler, Texas. Hey, it's Mandee, and you know I love to relax, right? I love telling you all about the incredible staff at Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler. This time, I want to tell you about Christian. Recently, I scheduled a dual service day with massage and facial. Pro tip, schedule a massage before the facial. And when I was there, I shared with Christian that I have redness in my skin. So he recommended that we do the CBD Amber Light facial. It was amazing. It totally reduced the redness, and my skin felt so juicy and hydrated. I highly recommend it if you also deal with redness flare-ups in your skin. He even shared the mask with me that he used so I can use it at home in between my facial treatments. I'm excited to include this in my skincare routine and get spa-like results at home. If you've never done a dual service day, it's time. You're worth it. Schedule your next massage or facial or both now by visiting Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa, located in the Cumberland Shopping Center in Tyler, or book online at handandstonetyler.com.
All right, well, welcome back to Celebrating Women's podcast. I'm Ashley Fisher.
I'm Mandee Montana, and today we have a special guest.
Hello.
There she is, Carleen Darkbase. Carleen and I have been friends for many, many years. We've had the opportunity to volunteer together, to work together. We both have an extensive background in media, but now, like me, she's off on a new adventure. So we're excited to hear about that today, Carleen.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll get into what you're doing now. So kind of, how we met. You were is media sales is that how you would describe it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And not only in sales, but in management. And so you've got a vast network. You've met a lot of people, but you've done some other things in life too to kind of support that. As well as volunteering, you've also led different classes and like a Bible study. Is that right?
Yes.
And that's kind of how this began, maybe? Am I correct?
Somewhat, yes.
Somewhat? Okay.
I believe that nothing is wasted.
Mm-hmm.
And so often when you go through things or you have these phases of life that you're not really sure why or what anybody's going to do with that, God or you, and then fast forward, you look back and you go, wow, that wasn't wasted. So I would say it's a culmination of things, from a program that I've been through, from a Sunday school class that I taught, and then starting up a Bible study in my home about 10 or 11 years ago-ish, and just all those things kind of culminating together to create a mission that now I'm on.
So tell us about your mission.
Okay, so what I aim to do is help women heal, most specifically from divorce. I think in our culture today, there's so much emphasis on just moving forward, get on Match. We don't often really take the time to unpack our bags, to take inventory, to take stock, and to heal the right way. We get a lot of very bad advice, often very well-meaning advice, but I have what I jokingly call a street degree in divorce. And so I've done some things well, done some things not well. I've been through a ton of counseling, and I can see how the threads of the things that I've been through have put me in a place of wholeness. I am healed. I am not a bitter person. I have forgiveness working in both directions. There's a lot of things I feel like God has put women in my path who have gone through this, an inordinate number of women in my path. And it became very evident that he was asking me to do something with what I've been through and how I've learned how to heal and to help women heal well from divorce, and to help them be able to live a full life and step into their purpose. Divorce does not have to be the death sentence of your dreams. So
do you find, is that what most women who maybe are fresh out of a divorce, is that kind of what you find them to be feeling like? Well, now my whole world is just blown up, and what now? Is that where they're left?
Sometimes, it's a mixed bag. Yeah. I find some women are like, whew, hallelujah, I'm free. And they're just charging toward a new future without always thinking all of those decisions through. I've met a lot of women who ended their marriage for lack of communication or whatever reasons. And then a year later, they regret it and they think, oh my gosh, had I known, I would have been more grateful for what I had.
Mm.
And I've had women who were just absolutely shattered and did not understand how the world could keep turning. Like, don't they know? And I've been there. I've been in that divorce. I've been in the one where I was like, whew, see ya. And you get a lot in between. You get a lot of people who are just angry, a lot of people who are shattered, a lot of people who are guilty because maybe they were the unfaithful one or they just chose to walk away, and then they're left to pick up the pieces and not always knowing how to heal or what they need to do.
Yeah.
It's a mixed bag. There's so many different things out there that people are having to deal with when it pertains to divorce.
Enter Carleen.
Enter Carleen. I can walk you through it because I've been through it pretty much. Not all of those things, but many of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
So tell us a little bit about it. So is it a course? Is it a study? Do you do one-on-one coaching? Like, tell us a little bit about how this works for you.
Yes. So the foundation of it is actually an online course. It is somewhat self-paced, but guided. It's rooted a lot in journaling. I think that that's one thing that people don't really understand the benefit of. And if they did, it can be very, very life-changing, but not just writing your feelings down every day. Because when you try to teach someone a concept that's really difficult, and not difficult intellectually, difficult emotionally, I don't want to do that. People will resist. And I remember sitting in a counselor's office and she started digging into me and I got so defensive and angry, hot tears. You know the kind.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's like, I'm not crying. But you're about to be crying. Not the I'm not crying, you're crying. It was no, I'm not crying. I am pissed. You know?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I know how that felt. And ultimately it was wonderful. I owe so much to this woman, this darling, wonderful, smart, capable Christian woman who is a licensed MFT. And I really credit her and Jesus with my emotional health in a lot of regard, able to break familial and cultural things that were ingrained, passive aggressive things, behaviors that you don't even realize are so insidious and so harmful to a relationship.
Yeah.
And so I do credit her for helping me. It's like I went in here to have you help me figure out how to be a better wife so that this angry, abusive husband won't get so mad at me. And all you want to do is talk about me and my past and how I handle things. I'm like, wait a minute.
Hold the mirror up
Hold
to
the phone.
you.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was wonderful. But I also know that when you do the work yourself,
Yeah.
instead of somebody teaching you, you can go to a Sunday school class, you go to a class and sometimes you hear wonderful things. Sometimes you resist it. Sometimes you just walk right away from it and forget what they just said. But if you are actually doing the work yourself and coming to the conclusions and being guided toward the wholeness and the healing and, okay, you tell me I have to forgive God, but how exactly am I supposed to do that? How?
Yeah.
It can't be as simple as just deciding to forgive because feelings are difficult and crazy and powerful. So it is a guided journey where I am just the tour guide and the woman is doing all the work. I don't have one-on-one coaching right now. I will probably do a focus group when I'm launching officially. And I do have some plans to do some events and retreats and things like that. But I really felt the mission that was put on my heart was to do it at scale because there's not enough out there right now for women that I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is the first time I've heard of anything like this, which is exciting because it's so necessary. I mean, that's been one of those areas that we really have just left people to just figure out. And I think maybe, do you think because partly maybe being in the South, it's, well, marriage is covenant, marriage is forever. So if you end it, you got to figure it out.
Maybe. And I think it's just it's so common that people just accept it as a part of life. And just like anything else hard that you go through, that you'll just figure it out. But how many people do you know that are walking around that are an emotional wreck?
Yeah.
But they
most
pretty it up.
people, whether they're divorced or not.
Well,
Yes.
true. That's so true.
But even more so
Yes.
after they go through that. But, that's so much of what we talk about on this podcast is like, I love that you're talking about encouraging the journaling, Car, because it's so fundamental that people do the work themselves. I love that you
Absolutely.
talked about that. And I mean, most people don't stop long enough to think about the thoughts that are running through their head, let alone write them down and reflect on where is that coming from. And I'm not saying I do all the time. I'm not trying to take that on, but I've done a little bit of that and it's usually pretty helpful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and you realize too that the thoughts that you think are the thoughts that are steering you.
Yeah.
And if you aren't conscious of them, you have no idea what is actually forcing you down the road.
That's right.
You know.
Well, and sometimes people want to run from those thoughts and they don't want to deal with them.
Yeah.
Right.
And then on the opposite side of that spectrum, sometimes you have a situation where people will dwell on an unhealthy thought and dwell on it and dwell on it and dwell on it. And when it stays in your head, it's a really interesting phenomenon. When it stays in your head, it gets distorted and it stays there. It's like it bounces around in an echo chamber. But
Yeah.
when you can write it out, it's like you're able to purge it from your system and get some of that toxicity out.
Yeah.
And I've guided it in such a way where hopefully the person doesn't dwell on the unhealthy and they can put things into some perspective and have some aha moments and realize, okay, I can change this line of thinking. I'm not just because it feels this way right now doesn't mean that it has to feel this way forever.
Yeah.
I can take charge of my feelings and putting them on paper with privacy and anonymity, knowing that you can burn this thing at the end of it if you like. That's totally fine. But it helps people to really assess where they are.
Yeah.
So that you can't always know where to go if you don't know where you are right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people probably feel lost, like you're saying, like that feeling of lost, of you don't know where you are. I mean, like physically, mentally, where are you going? What is the point? What, like what's next? I mean, it's such a difficult thing. And if, like you're saying, it's helpful sometimes even to write down the crazy stuff that's running through your head, just to release it and let it go and find the direction somewhere in the midst of all of that, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And foundationally, there's a lot of taking inventory.
Yeah.
And the journal digs into some things that people probably have tried to not think about or tried to forget, but it's essential to put these things together and to get them out so that you can deal with them.
Yeah.
My initial title was going to be, let's really deal with divorce. But I thought, I just don't know if that covers it properly. That could be misconstrued.
Yeah.
So I'm not giving legal advice. That's none of that stuff. So
Right. So what are you calling it?
Life after divorce.
I like it.
Yep. I like that too.
Simple. It is what it is. That's the goal, is a full real life.
Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the subjects? I mean, I don't want to give too much of it away for somebody that's wanting to explore this. I don't want to go through the whole program, but do you want to talk a little bit about what the details of what some of that looks like? So if somebody's listening and they're thinking, man, when she launches this might be for me. Do you want to kind of give them a preview of what that looks like?
Absolutely. I foundationally have it based on the grief process.
Okay.
Because a divorce is a death.
Yeah.
And it's many, many deaths. It's the death of dreams. It's the death of vows. It's the death of sometimes the death of people's identity or what they think it is. And so just like a death of a loved one or any human in your life, a divorce is a death that you have to grieve properly. And so it really revolves around the grief process. And then we dig in, there's a section on each of those areas. And there are many different people who will say the different stages of the grief process, but I'm focusing on anger, the depression, anxiety, stress, and sadness are kind of one. They're so intertwined.
Yeah.
I'm dealing with forgiveness. That's probably the hardest part. And so I save that part for last so people can stick with it. Come on, you can do it. Get to the end. I can't start with forgiveness. People will be like, forget it. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But not only forgiving your ex, but forgiving yourself. So it is It is a program that kind of walks you through what does your unique grief process look like, and then how do we deal with that? And it is
Yeah.
also faith-based. So I am one of these people that I don't know if I could be sitting here if it weren't for Jesus.
Mm.
I don't think I would be.
Yeah.
Not well. Anyway, let's just put
You
it
might
that way.
be here, but it would be a different picture.
Right. You know, when people go through horrific situations, I don't know how people get through it that don't have him.
Yeah.
You know, there have been times in my life that I've likened it to. I felt like I was on a parade, on a float, and it was God's hand
Mm.
just carrying me through life, and I'm just waving at the crowd in a daze, not even understanding how I kept my job and how, how my boss didn't fire me because I was just a zombie for a period of time, and been through some crazy things. And so really the genesis of how it started was someone mentioning to me that they thought I should do a course on something kind of unrelated. It was actually on executive coaching and how to get a job and how to succeed in a man's world in a very male driven industry. And I was the top executive in this market. And how what can you teach other women? And we were having a conversation about it. She said, you should really do an online course. Well, God and I had been in our little quiet time that morning. I had said, I am trying to figure out what you are going to do with some of these things. You promise that you will work all things.
Yep.
What are we going to do with that?
Yeah. What about that ugly thing over there?
Yeah, exactly. And he said, you are going to help other women who've been divorced. And I was like, what does that look like? I work 60 hours a week at a media company. How does that look? And so when that friend said to me, you should do an online course with what you know, I got in my car, and I don't hear God's voice audibly, but it was almost as if I got a tap on the shoulder. Hey, did you catch that? That's what I want you to do, but not work related.
Yeah.
This is how we're going to do this divorce thing.
Oh, that's so cool.
So I was like, oh, this is great. So I got home, my business brain took over, and I'm like, okay, is this the right move? Does this make sense? So I started doing my SWOT analysis of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and what else is out there? How are other people doing divorce recovery? How is the church handling it? What are other people doing? And I realized that the church is in a very difficult position as it pertains to divorce, because for a couple of reasons. If you go to your pastor for counseling, your pastor's never been through a divorce. So they don't know what you're going through, because if they've been through a divorce, they don't get to be a pastor anymore. And if you're a woman going through a divorce, a male counselor can be a disadvantage. It can be. It depends on your issue.
Yeah.
And they just don't understand things. So I'm definitely targeting women, because I don't know if I should be teaching men. I don't know if it's different. Right now, I know it is for women. And what I've seen is the church puts people in a room and they watch a little video, and it's in a group setting. And sometimes there isn't a divorce recovery ministry at all, but I haven't had anybody come out of one and said, wow, that was so helpful.
Yeah.
And so many women won't go to the church for this. They don't want to burst into tears. They don't want to air their dirty laundry. You feel like you need to share it, but you're going to see these people at Little League and at the grocery store and at church on Sunday. And sometimes there's been a fractured relationship. Oh, well, they're friends with my husband, or, now I have to go find a new church because that was his church and I moved here, or whatever the case may be. And so I felt like, okay, so it's not that the church is failing. The church just isn't, it's tough. It would be tough for the church to really dig into this from a corporate perspective, because they don't want to look like they're condoning it. There were not a lot of online resources. There's a lot of books that have been written. A lot of people I know, and sometimes myself included, buy a book and you get a chapter in and you get busy. Life gets in the way. And
it's not personal. It's not going to be a book. More than likely, it's not going to call you out specifically on your stuff.
That's right.
In a way that a guided course could do.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's exactly it. So that's kind of the structure of it. And I wanted to be able to offer community. So there will be online community. So, you might be in a community group with a woman in Ohio and a woman in California and a woman in Montana. And you're like, I can just share all
Yeah.
the things.
And they're going to get it.
And they're gonna get
that
it.
is one of the most powerful things. That's something that I've seen, like with the lipedema community that we've talked about the last podcast, is that community of women is a gem that I never knew existed. And it's because they all get it.
Yes.
They all get it.
Yes.
And that's just so valuable. I mean,
Without a doubt.
it's amazing.
People that, because you feel so alone sometimes.
Mm.
You feel like I'm a big fat failure. There's a big scarlet D painted on my forehead and my chest. And it's very disconcerting to be in that place. And so to have community that understands what you're going through, and also that they're not going to be gossiping about you. It's not going to get back to the other moms
because
at
they don't
school.
know you.
They don't know you. They don't live in your same community.
Yeah,
So it really is an opportunity to minister to people in a way that technology is amazing, because 10, 20 years ago we really didn't have the ability to do this way. So I'm hoping that it works.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me. The way that you came about this is so similar to the way that Ashley has come about her lipedema journey. When she first decided to do the podcast, she basically said, God told me to get loud about this.
And I said no. But then I said, okay.
Okay. I was just kidding.
Yeah, it's just
kidding,
so,
God.
I was just sitting over here thinking, oh, the similarities. Like,
Yeah.
how cool is this that I'm getting to witness two people that I care about so much, creating so much change and creating such a lasting, wonderful, positive impact on lives because you listened.
I think not only that, but I think it goes back to what you said about God doesn't waste anything. That has been one of the biggest things that I've learned over this last year, is he does not waste a moment. And because there are times when I sit back and I go, really? Like, my big fat legs, that's what you're going to use? But that's been a big thing in my life. It's impacted me a lot, and it impacts a lot of people. It's just it is kind of humorous. And I'm sure that had, somebody looked at you 10, 15, 20 years ago and said, you're going to be doing a divorce course, that you would have been like, say what?
Exactly.
I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that.
No.
And probably more than likely, it probably would have incited some fear. Like, no, I don't want to go through a divorce. I'm not going to do that. It's going to be perfect. It's going to be rainbows and butterflies, and it's all going to be fabulous. But then when we actually experience life and life happens, it's been so encouraging to find that no matter what, it's not going to be wasted.
That's right.
But we do have to we have to be willing, though.
We do.
So.
And it's crazy process.
Yeah.
Walking away from a 30-year career.
Yeah.
When it was going really well in some regards, and frustrating in other regards, but that's any job.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think God frustrated things on purpose because he knew it was time for me to go, but I didn't.
He was kind of warming the stove until your feet got too hot, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So so you left that in order to do this full time?
Yes.
What was, maybe this might switch the topic a hair, but like, what was that process? That I'm curious and interested in that process between leaving and going, what that felt like, because I think sometimes that feels and sounds almost glamorous, like, oh, I left this 30-year career and I'm starting this thing. It is super not glamorous.
Nope.
And it is a real struggle that that's something nobody really talks about. So can you talk about that? Like, what were some of those feelings, and what gave you the confidence to keep going, to know that you made the right choice?
Yes. So all the feelings were there. I ranged from fear to exhilaration to guilt to dealing with pride to and the fear was a few things: fear, financial, fear of ridicule, fear of people thinking I'm crazy. What do people think of me? I had a position that was not a big deal at all, but I was visible
Mm-hmm.
Clark,
And
you were a big deal.
no,
I appreciate
I
your
was so
humility.
not a big deal.
But you were leading an organization leading a pretty big organization in a cluster of radio properties that have been here in East Texas and known in East Texas for 30 plus years, probably closer to 40. And you were the leader in the building. That's a big deal. I appreciate your humility, but that is a big deal.
You're kind.
And you did it very well.
Thank
And you were well known in the community and have a lot of relationships that you built and developed and have created an impact there as well with various volunteer organizations over the years. I feel like I'm listing off your resume. I don't mean it to sound like that, but you made a huge impact with Pets for People. You've made a huge impact in downtown with Heart of Tyler. We worked together on that, and you've continued that work even after I kind of walked away from it. But and that's just two of them. You've done so much. So yes, you are a little bit of a big deal.
You're very kind. You're very kind. I have been on a lot of boards, that's for sure.
You have.
And
You have.
I like to think I was the head janitor and chief bottle washer.
Well, that's part of
in that
being a
building
leader.
because I think I was the only person who was willing to unclog the toilet ever. So
Yeah.
you know,
Or wash the dishes in the sink.
wash the dishes.
Yeah, I did
in
that
the
a few
sink.
times,
Oh,
but
thank
you're
you.
welcome.
Maybe there may be some secret sauce there, folks. Like the person who you just heard was like the big deal, also being willing to wash the dang dishes.
Mm. And unclog the toilets.
Just
Yes,
saying.
yes,
Just
that's right.
saying.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad I did it. And I have to, so those were all the feelings. I have to go back to your question. What gave me the courage to do it? I would say two things, but two people, two entities. First of all, God. I knew this was what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And so that would overcome the fear. And I got to a place where I thought, I have to be willing to swallow any pride. And if people laugh at me, they laugh at me. I've got to get to a place. I've always been a people pleaser.
Mm.
I am an Enneagram 2-3,
Mhm.
literally 2-3. They are dead to rights the same. So I'm the helper and the achiever at the same time, which is an
Mm.
interesting combination. But I knew that I needed to first seek the approval of God
Mhm.
and not men. And if men ridicule me, then so be it. So far, no one has to my face. I don't know what people have said behind my back, but frankly, that's not my business, what they
No.
say about me behind my back. So,
Right.
and then the second one is my husband. So I got married a year ago, and he is such a sweet human and wonderful man. And he encouraged me to go for it
Mm.
and said, we will make some adjustments and we'll provide the way
That's
for you to
awesome.
go for this.
That's awesome.
So yeah, he's been very, very supportive.
That's great.
So
That's awesome. Yeah. A good supportive husband is it's a game changer.
it is, it can be. And my original plan, I started this before he and I were even dating. And I thought, well, I will get this launched as a side hustle. And then maybe if it starts to generate enough income that it can replace my salary, then Lord willing, I can move to that. Well, the way this business plan has been built out by me and the good Lord, I'm not sure how much of it is him and how much of it is me, because I can complicate things. There's no way I could have done this as a side hustle, working the hours that I
Yeah.
worked,
Yeah.
doing all the things that I did. So it's been a gift to be able to really devote my time to it instead of, on the weekends, I would spend several hours writing and working on it and doing research and taking other courses and learning about this world of online courses and online marketing and how to build an email list and how to do all these things. And then also trying to be very prayerful and say, all right, Lord, what am I supposed to say? What is this got to look like? What is this going to look like?
Which those are two huge pieces. You have a full business part of this, and then the content itself is so you want to get that. You want to get both right.
Yes.
But especially, I'm sure there was an extra burden on that part.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But it's been an amazing journey to put it together and to see it come together. And I decided at work, they had told us about Canva.
Mhm.
And I was not in a position that I needed to use it, but I was fascinated by it. And so when I decided this needs to be an online course, I opened up a Word document and I thought, okay, wait a minute. I don't want to do this twice. It's not like you can build out a workbook in Word. You could. I don't want it to just be a bunch of questions and lines for answers. I want there to be, I want it to be interesting. I want to minimize the pain points of digging into your soul, So I thought, let me just play around in Canva because I might have some multiple choice lists. I may have some diagramming. I may have some space for drawing, and Word just locks you into where you can put pictures and things. So I started building out a workbook in Canva. So I had to learn Canva. So it took it a minute to come together, but the workbook itself is now done. And so now I'm formatting the website and all those things. So it's super, super close, but it's been a process. It's been an interesting process. And it's neat to see the things that 4 years ago when I started this, probably what things there still live in it and what things I have completely scrapped and said, what was I thinking? We're going to start this one over. But it's a fun journey.
That's it.
And I'm sure it will continue to change. One of the other beauties of the online course platform is as women start to take it and I get feedback, I might find that, okay, this isn't resonating with people. So I can just change it. Once you publish a book, it's out there.
Yeah.
This is an easy change in Canva and resave as a PDF. And I can update this course. Or if there's something people are like, gosh, I really wish you had have covered this. I really wish we had have addressed this. Then I can add those things.
That's exciting.
I love that you're talking about that because I've seen that with other people in the like professional and self-development field. I mean, I think you both know, and I've shared it on the podcast. I've followed Tony Robbins, and I took one of his courses recently, and I noticed in his course book that it was like you could see it was version something, and he's adapted it over time. As culture changes, as technology changes. He's been coaching for, I think, like 4 decades now. So things have definitely changed, but I love that you're able to do that and that you're speaking to that because it's going to need to evolve.
Oh, without a doubt. And just like we've seen what technology is doing to our culture and all the various platforms, 2 years from now, there's probably going to be some platform that's going to be very relevant and need to be addressed.
Yeah.
For a while, one of the trends in people getting divorced, there was a time that marriage counselors and MFTs would cite that people reconnecting with high school sweethearts on Facebook or people just reconnecting with high school other alumni on Facebook was one of the leading causes of divorce in our country for a while.
Yeah.
That's not a thing anymore. So it's not in my course, but
it
COVID,
was relevant at the time. COVID.
Without a doubt.
Right.
COVID is not specifically addressed in my course, but going through that and seeing how it brought some people closer together. A lot more people had some babies, but then by the opposite side of that coin is a lot of people were like, I don't like you. And I've got to see you 24/7. I don't get 8 hours away
every day. And I didn't realize it.
Right. Yeah. Right. And as AI is on the scene and the host of crazy things, I mean, I don't know how that might ever pertain to divorce, but I want to leave it open to where things can be addressed. New issues can be addressed. If there's anything that's irrelevant, that I can pull it out and replace it with something more beneficial for people.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking action steps. My brain goes into that sometimes, but so you haven't launched yet.
Not yet.
Do you have
very close?
I don't want you to give us a date because I know I don't think you have a specific date, but do you think it will be by the end of the year?
Yes. My goal is to get it launched this summer.
Okay,
Ooh,
awesome.
Yes.
Will you come back when you launch?
I would love to. I'd be honored to if you'd have me back.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I would love that. So we do something fun too, Carleen. We ask kind of a series of questions at the end of each podcast. We ask the same ones. And I find it interesting to see what everybody's answers are. So kind of the first one is what gets you up in the morning and what keeps you up at night? Like what is your passion?
Well, my family and helping divorced women become whole. Like that is a passion. I have been so blessed. God has been so good to me in my soul. Obviously, we live in the greatest country on earth and we live well. So I'm super blessed, but more in family, the family that God gave me by blood and the family that I've chosen, people that I love dearly, that love me. I've been so, so, so blessed. And so I want to help other people experience that.
Yeah.
And the goal is, the target of this is Christian women because divorce affects the church as much as it affects the world.
Yep.
And if someone who maybe doesn't know Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
somebody says, hey, why don't you do this? This might
Yeah.
really help you. And if they can meet him there
Mm.
because they see the threads of his grace and his kindness and how much he cares, and that
Mm.
true healing, there's only one source of true healing, and it's him.
Mhm.
So if I can help women live out their purpose and
help
know
them meet
Jesus,
him.
and
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
that's what gets me up. And then of course I have the most wonderful family. I have a grandbaby on the way, and I'm so excited.
Exciting.
So yes, there's
That's
a lot
awesome.
I have so many things to look forward to every day when I wake up. So I'm blessed.
And you've been divorced and you're excited. So like you mean that there's life after divorce?
There's absolutely life after divorce.
Okay.
I have yes.
You're
yes.
living what you're teaching there. So
I am
yeah.
for sure. I'm very blessed.
Yeah.
Very blessed.
So you could take this a couple different ways, but what scares you? What are you most afraid of?
Failing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does failing look like? What would that be?
You know, I would define failure today very differently than I would have in my younger life. There was a day that failing meant not doing a good job,
Mm-hmm.
that failing meant losing your job or having someone break up with you or leave you or losing at something or letting other people down or having a goal and not accomplishing it. All of the things of the world. Now I define failure as quitting.
Interesting.
Because this is not a zero-sum game. So unless you quit. So if you fail at something, there's always a lesson there.
Yeah.
And again, like we talked about earlier, God says, I will use all things. I work all things. Nothing is wasted. And so when you fail, often that redirects you to your next victory
Mm-hmm.
if you choose it. So to me, failure is quitting. I don't see me quitting, but I guess there still is that part of me that does fear, what if this is a big old flop and I just fall on my face? And then my husband is like, so you quit your job for nothing.
Not for nothing, though, because he uses all
Yes.
things, right? So even if this
Yes.
doesn't become what you hope it will become, then it's a transition to something else, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. And I think
And I know
more
you see
so,
it that way,
I do. It honestly would
even when it
be
stings.
letting somebody down. That is another way that I define failure, is letting someone else down.
Mm-hmm.
There's a zillion women out there I feel like I'm supposed to help. And if I don't do this well, I would let them down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to let God down. I don't want to let my husband down. I don't want to let my friends down. So
Yeah.
Well, so that's my biggest fear.
Well, then I can help you with
Truthfully.
that one because here's the deal. At the end of the day, whose responsibility is it for those people?
Well, yeah, that's God's.
He's got them.
Preach, sis.
So all you can do is all you can do, and he does the rest. And so let's just say it was a big old flop. They're going to be okay too. And you're going to be okay. And they're going to be okay partly because of you, but they're not going to not be okay because of you. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you for that.
Do you see why I love her so much?
Right? How can you not?
So now you have no fears. We're just
That's right.
Solve that
Check.
problem.
You're welcome.
Next issue, Dr. Ashley.
Yes.
How much do
So-
you charge by the hour?
It's for free. Just bring
Oh,
me some
yay.
coffee. And speaking of coffee, this is one of our questions we like to ask. How do you take your coffee?
I love a hot latte.
Just a hot latte.
Easy peasy, the way God invented it.
No frills, no extras.
I don't need sugar. I don't need flavor. I don't need ice in it. I don't understand this. I can't drink cold coffee, but I love a good latte.
Okay.
Me too.
All right. How about a cocktail?
Wow. Mandee will know this is the most boring answer in the world. I'm kind of a one-trick pony when it comes to cocktails, but I love a good glass of red wine.
Okay.
Now-
Sweet or real dry?
Very dry.
Okay.
My favorites are the big, bold Napa Cabs or the French Bordeaux's or even a Bordeaux-style blend out of Napa. I like a lot of the Italian wines. I could go on. There's a lot of reds, but definitely dry. I'm not a sweet wine person. I got sugar out of my diet completely about 15 years ago.
Oh,
And
wow.
so now it's not that I don't crave sugar anymore. I actually don't really care for it as much.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't like sweet things.
Yeah.
Now I will, if it has to be a cocktail, I do love a good dirty martini. and I do love a good glass of whiskey. Once in a while, but that tears up my stomach. So I probably have 2 martinis a year and maybe 2 whiskeys a year.
Okay.
Red wine, don't ask me how much of that I drink.
Well,
That
you're
doesn't need to
supposed
go
drink
on a
at least
record.
1 glass a day for your heart health, right?
I love the people who say that. Can I just say, these
So-
are my people.
So I'm just taking that one off
Yeah.
of your. You don't have
Thank
to
you.
worry about that one.
Again, check, score. Yay. Ashley for the win.
Yes. We'll keep her. We'll keep Ashley around.
Absolutely.
So this is another fun one. If you were given a dream trip, you can go anywhere in the world. The ticket's free. We're going to put you up somewhere swanky. Where would you go and why?
Italy.
Mm.
All of it. Everywhere. The whole thing.
All the pasta, all the red wine.
All the pasta, all the red wine, all the countryside, all the
Mhm.
bread, all the cheese,
Mhm.
all the ocean, the beauty of it. I have wanted to go to Italy as long as I can remember. And, you know, the why is kind of humorous. It's a bit of a joke in the Bay's household. So for the longest time, I figured we have to have some. I've always thought of myself as I got to be Italian. I am loud. I talk with my hands and I love people with food.
Mhm.
So clearly, and I love all things Italian. So clearly I'm Italian, right? And kind of the joke in the family, my mom was like, I don't think so. I think we're pretty English. Like, well, maybe I got the Italian recessive gene, right? So I've always said I got the Italian recessive gene. I got my 23andMe back, and I am literally less than 1% of anything European that could be considered Italian.
Really?
Pretty much,
Well,
mom was right, as she usually is. Moms are always right. I'm not, but in today's day and age, you get to do this. I identify as Italian. And I expect everyone to jump on board with it.
I'm on board with it. You've introduced me to some incredible pasta, some incredible wine. You feed me
Oh,
and
man. That was good.
you pour great wine. It's good. We'll take it.
Do
We'll
have
take it.
excellent taste in
You
wine.
do have excellent taste in wine. I'm so
To-
grateful for
Much
it.
to my husband's chagrin.
Eh.
He's like, oh my gosh, I've never spent so much money on something you drink in my life.
I
You know,
mean,
but I've got him on board. now,
Heart
too.
health, baby.
That's right. Well, you know, not our first date, but the first time he invited me to his house to cook me dinner, would you like a glass of red wine? Well, I would love one. And he pulls out the Boda box. And I was like,
Uh-oh.
oh. So the first time I drank it, albeit very slowly. And so then when he invited me back, I had a bottle of wine in my purse.
yes.
He goes, would you like a glass of wine? I go, I do, but not that. I brought us one. And he would say, I don't get it. It all tastes the same to me. I said, wait till I take you to Napa and then you will understand.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what happened. We went to Napa last January. It was his first time to ever
Fun.
go. And, you know, when I lived in California for 11 years, so I used to drive over most Saturdays. So I kind of, you know, knew some fun places to go that I could take him and he could kind of acclimate and learn about his palate. And now he's not quite as much of a wine snob as I am, but pretty close. So it's pretty
Okay.
fun. So I'm getting him on board.
That's exciting.
With the
That's
good
fun.
stuff.
I love it. I love it. So I'm glad we got to end on a fun note. How could somebody get in contact with you if they're like, hey, I want to be like on your initial list? Like when you launch, I want to be on your list. I want to be one of the first people to be a part of your course. How would they contact you and be a part of that?
Ah, yes. Thank you. So the web address will be lifeafterdivorcecourse.com. It is somewhat live, but still in process. They could also send me an email, Carleen, which is Carleen, it's a double E, at restoringheartsacademy.com. And I will put you on the mailing list because I'm about to start kind of pushing out soft content and little pieces of, hey, here's what it looks like. Here's what we're going to cover, and start letting people know that it's coming.
Awesome.
So that when we launch in the summer, they can jump in.
Perfect. So lifeafterdivorcecourse.com
Yes.
and Carleen at restoringheartsacademy.com.
Yes.
Perfect. And I'll put those links on our page too, so that it's easy for people to find that. I have to jot it down.
Thank you. And you'd think I could have come up with a shorter email address. I apologize, people.
All good.
There will be a form on the website when it's live that you can just put your
Listen.
own email address and not have to worry about mine.
If we're getting to the place where we can't type a little bit more, we've got bigger problems.
I mean, we have a similar situation. We're celebrating women podcast at gmail.com. So
Mhm.
lots of letters.
Yes,
It's okay.
yes.
It's all right.
It's fine.
At least there's not a lot of dots. You know, at the media company, it was a
Mhm.
first name dot last name at, in like 75 words. It felt like the longest email. Anytime I had to do an online, like a PDF where you fill in, there was never enough space for my whole work email address ever. So I tried to keep it not that long.
It's good.
Well, it has been such a blessing to have you here. You're always a blessing in my life. I'm so grateful for you. But this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you for taking the time.
Oh, thank you for having me. And you are a blessing to me as well.
The Celebrating Women podcast wants to hear from you. Find us on social media at facebook.com/Celebrating Women Podcast or on Instagram, search Celebrating Women Podcast. You can also email us a voice message to celebratingwomenpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear your story or the story of an incredible woman you know. Send it to celebratingwomenpodcast@gmail.com. The Celebrating Women podcast is created and hosted by Mandee Montana and Ashley Fisher. Thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to the Celebrating Women podcast.